Hi, and welcome to the Sheroes Collective podcast. I'm your host, Renee Sparks, and today it is such a privilege. I know I say this every single week, but honestly, you are going to hear all about this amazing Shiro, and you are going to tell me that I'm right. I'm absolutely right. So I don't even want to take a second longer to say who it is. It is Shireen Motara. And if you don't know her, you're about to know her after this. She is the CEO of Tara Transform and a certified coach and consultant. And this is just what she believes, right? So when I read it, I was like, okay, I cannot leave this out of it. As an African feminist, she's deeply passionate about the potential of women and Africa, addressing inequality and committed to social change that values and recognizes women's rights and contributions. And I can honestly say that's exactly what this woman does. Like, we are going to unpack all the little logos behind her because you're going to understand how they all kind of lead to each other and build on each other. She's an experienced strategist and consultant who has not only supported organizations locally in South Africa, but also internationally. So really big agencies. And she's a board leader. When I saw her bio, I was like gobsmacked because I am on a few NGO boards, and I seem to think like, how do I juggle it all? When I've added it, and I know that you've transcended from one to the other, Shireen, there were 14. I was like, and big, not little organizations. So really impressive background in terms of leadership and showing up in spaces that predominantly would probably have been for men. Among her qualifications, I just want to highlight, she has a master's degree in law, and she has postgrad certificates or certifications in coaching, HR, and business administration. So really such a well-rounded and vast spectrum of things, but I'm sure you're going to tell us just how they intersect actually. So welcome, Shireen. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Renee.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to kick off with the first question. And I think the obvious one for me is all the things I just mentioned about you now. You are busy in so many spaces. Your focus is around women, amplifying voices, giving opportunities, and birthing all these new things. Where did it start? How did you get here?
I think it started at university, actually. I joined a group of women, and we got someone to teach us about feminism and what feminism was about. And so we were called Kopanang, and we were just a group of women trying to understand ourselves, how we want to show up in the world, and so on. And that was the foundation. From there, of course, I went looking for a job and then worked in the private sector for just about 10 months, and then I was out. And from there, my journey in women's rights started. So I worked in women's rights for most of my life, but then also wanted to expand my skills into HR, particularly when the employment equity legislation came out, and then organizational development. And so I've worked across the spectrum, but always with women's rights and gender equality as my foundation. And I've worked in HR in government. I've worked in HR in the government in the UK, and then got into coaching when I got back to South Africa through a program called Link, which was for leaders in the children's sector, where they were offered coaching. And I was just so amazed at this work because I loved mentoring.
Yeah.
So I went to make a loan, went to study coaching, and then only really started coaching full-time from 2016.
Okay.
And also stayed full-time in Tara Transform from 2016, and we've just gone from there.
Fantastic. I mean, you've actually already started with my next question, because I wanted to say I'm in absolute awe of all the activities that you do. And what really stands out for me is women's leadership and visibility. That seems to be like exactly what you're saying. I mean, we're going to talk about the next chapter and Ascend, but how did that particular topic become important for you? Because I mean, you could have chosen many things, right? But you've chosen women and women leadership, and it's such a point at the moment that everyone's talking about, and I know we've been talking about it for years, but somehow there is more visibility. You've created a lot of platforms where women, can step into their power, showcase their power, and not just take a back seat in boardrooms or kind of disappear among the men who are leading many organizations. So why champion women's leadership and visibility specifically?
Well, I think my view is, and also based on my experience of starting to work in gender-based violence, and understanding the complexity of those issues, how economic empowerment plays a key role, economic independence, but then also women being able to make their own decisions, which means that they need to be able to have voice, but also they need to be able to influence the system, because the system is what creates the challenges we have. Our laws, the nature of our communities, our social structures, and so on. And unless women have a voice in challenging, moving, shifting those, we're not going to go far. So for me, it's always been that women need to be co-leaders, women need to be having a voice in key decision-making issues, women need to be influencing policy, and so on. And so for us, it's always been supporting women to be that, and to also take on the leadership journey without or with understanding that yes, you will suffer challenges of confidence and so on, but actually you can do it. And men, even though they suffer those challenges of confidence, they show up anyway. So why can't we do that? So that's kind of been important for me. And I feel that the more we see women in those positions, the more girls also understand that they can do that, and they can be that, and they can lead our society, our economy, and so on.
No, fantastic. I can honestly sit here and go, yes, it makes sense. I hear you. I can even see some of myself in what you're saying, and so many other women that I've already spoken to and engaged with that can really, those things resonate in that sense. I'm often accused of having my finger in too many pies, right? And I need to choose one thing, then I do one thing. But I've seen you also straddle this vast sphere of things. I mean, you're a very creative person. I've seen that you have journals, which I'm sure leads back to your coaching aspect. You hosting leadership webinars. You've got this launch of Ascend, which hopefully you'll tell us a little bit about. Conferences. You're a speaker. You're an author. There's so many parts of you. I'm sure it wasn't an easy ride to get to where you are, but how have you managed to remain focused? Because very easily people will say to you, no, choose this one thing. If you're choosing GBV, it's GBV. But yet you've managed to bring all these parts together. So how have you actually remained focused on that?
Well, I think it's been an evolution. So, over the years, I've been doing work, and then I realized, no, actually, this needs to be more. I need to go deeper here, or I need to strengthen work here, or I see that, oh, at the board level, there are issues. So actually, I need to be stepping up there, and so on. So for me, it's always been ultimately, how am I contributing to women's rights and gender equality in everything that I do? So I started serving on boards in 1999. I didn't even have a clue about boards, but I asked my CEO to nominate me to the Technicon SA Council, and that's where my journey started. And I feel like my voice in those spaces has been able to raise the issues around gender equality, around equity, around understanding women's rights, around being able to think about women more meaningfully in workplaces and so on. And I do things that I'm intentional about. So I'm not, people may think I do a lot of things, but I'm intentional about each of those. And again, as I said, it has to be women rights focused. So it has to be about supporting women. So all my board work is about that. And in fact, over the years, I've stepped down from a lot of boards. I'm currently only on 2 boards. I recently just joined a new global board. So I'm only on 2 boards right now because of that, trying to also reduce overworking and take care of my well-being. And then my other work is also linked, so all my work, for example, the coaching work that we do is all about supporting women leaders and women-led teams. Our consultancy work is around social justice and women's rights and gender equality. And then the communities that I host, for example, I have a number of, as you know, groups on WhatsApp that I host. They are all about primarily women as well. So even, for example, that the consultants group is more diverse. I
Yeah.
started it for women consultants to find opportunities and to connect with each other. Our gratitude group is just women. So I find I do things that I'm intentional about and I try to stay connected to that. So I'm never doing something just because I want to do another thing. There's always a reason for me doing that. And in fact, over the years, and now in particular, I've kind of slowed down more
Okay.
because as you know, I've moved to this small little coastal town and I really wanted to focus more on my well-being and to reduce overworking. So even though I still do a number of things, I try to be clear about how I manage my time and prioritize my well-being as well.
Fantastic. You've actually already answered my second question because I was going to say, being as busy as you are, what was your self-care activities that you practice? And I mean, I know you've moved to this small town and the town itself, with close to the ocean, there's a lot of opportunity for finding and centering yourself there. So
Mhm.
unless there was something else you wanted to add that you do differently, or that you've gone out of your way to kind of put in place in terms of self-care, but you've already spelled out, reducing workload based on intentionality, which is fantastic. I think it's something we can all learn from. Sometimes we do get over excited to be in spaces, and it is about sitting back and reflecting, am I bringing value to the space, and does this space actually contribute to where I want to be? So that was a really, really powerful tip that you've given us there, a little gem. So if you don't have anything else to add to your self-care activities,
I do
check.
want to
Oh, you do?
say that, I mean, I don't know if it's related to my self-care, but I bought a business in January, which is totally not social justice, but was part of my strategy of building financial independence.
Yeah.
Because, from a self-care point of view, I believe that is crucial for women as well, especially as we get older. And for those of us who are consultants that don't have employers contributing to our retirement annuities and so on, we have to think creatively about income. So I bought this business. It's an e-commerce business. I have a small team that's running it. I'm enjoying it because it's very creative and so
Yeah.
on, but I'm also still trying not to overwork. So I, for example, try to stop working around lunchtime, 2 o'clock. By 2 o'clock, then I rest a bit, and then I may do something in the evening, which is either like Canva or marketing, which is a bit creative and allows me to, to play a little bit. But so I think from a self-care perspective, I really try to do that. And also, I've been seeing a health coach who's been helping me look at my eating habits, trying to improve my eating habits. Because, in menopause, we gain a lot of weight, we have a lot of issues. And so eating as healthy has always been a challenge for me. So I'm slowly trying to address that, which has also helped a lot. And so, kind of holistic well-being. And within that, also, as I go through this journey, I'm trying to see how we create through the next chapter resources for women to be able to do the same thing. So, for example, on the 7th of September, we have the Blossom to Bloom event locally, and that's also about health and well-being. So we're bringing in health experts to support women, to speak to women about the importance of their physical health, but also their mental and financial well-being. Yeah.
No, fantastic. You're absolutely right. Very often when we throw ourselves into these spaces, that thing that goes, right? We're eating badly. I mean, I can speak of traveling the way that I did for work, putting work first and always showing up. You're eating junk food. You're not paying attention to your sleep patterns. So many things. And you're right. So we do need to also sit back, reflect, and look at what is possible, but also tap into these spaces that give us the opportunity to think about things differently. Because I didn't think about me playing on Canva as part of,
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm doing that's creative and making me think differently. So you've given me some food for thought there.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that. Before we had met, we spoke about the next chapter and Ascend. So if you could just take us through how those two things are offshoots from Tata Transform, which is the consulting company you have.
So, we do coaching in Tara Transform. Actually, we call it leadership development as part of the work that we do. And, I think that we've been so lucky to have to do that work in primarily women and feminist spaces. And so that has educated us about the fact that there are so many women out there who are still needing support, and often they want to do that on an individual basis, for example, and not through an organization. So the next chapter, in a sense, is also about my next chapter. So me moving here and trying to focus more on coaching work and women's well-being. And so the next chapter is really about how we support women's leadership, transitions, and well-being. And I mean, of course, all those three things apply to me as well, because I'm trying to transition to an easier way of life, a way of focusing on my well-being and being in a different place and so on. But then also, supporting other women to do that. And we know that a lot of women our age are now at a point where either they're wanting to move out of full-time employment or they have to leave full-time employment. And they're now thinking, what's next? And are not sure how to maneuver as far as that is concerned. So we wanting to provide support in that regard. So the next chapter is really offering coaching, mentoring, but also events and retreats, as well as other well-being resources, as you mentioned, like our journals, our affirmation cards, and then other resources. And we're also trying to connect with the other business, which allows us to provide other resources. So, for example, we design and develop notebooks and other stuff for people who are hosting conferences and events and so on. So custom kind of stuff that they want to give their participants. And we are able to do that because of the systems we have through our e-commerce business.
Okay.
And so that our work is very much about working in social justice and social change. And we try to stick to that. So that's again where we kind of focus. We're not all over the place. We stick to what we're really good at and the people and sector we know. So Ascend is also at the evolution of our work in that space. So we've been working with a lot of women in social justice, in social change, a lot of leaders, women in middle management, senior management, executive management. And what we are learning is that there are women in social justice who want to move into leadership, but feel that they need support to get there. I've been approached by a number of women individually for that kind of coaching, and it made me think about when I was an executive director, how lonely that journey was. You were always stuck between the board and the team, but there was no one really to hold you. So instead of having an individual coaching program for each of these women, we have decided to launch Ascend, which is a group coaching program focusing on executive development for women in social justice and social change, to support these women on their executive journey, but also to create a community of support for each other. Because we know, how lonely that journey can be, how challenging it can be, how you struggle often with the overworking, with managing a board, managing a team, and then in between that, taking care of yourself and your family if you have one, and so on. So Ascend is really about supporting women's advancement in executive leadership in social change and social justice. But from a point of, again, as I've said, leadership, transitioning, and well-being.
Oh, fantastic. So it's exciting things to see that there's almost like a mentoring group of women leaders that can now shape the future of leadership in terms of where we're going, because that is a very topical thing at the moment, is are we doing enough for leaders in general? So now if you think about women, even further behind in this industry.
Yes,
And
yes.
this is really, really something critical. So fantastic work. And I've seen the big hitters that will be supporting the space, which is incredible. So really, really kudos to you and your team for coming up with this, and really to the women that have stepped up and said, we are willing to be part of this process as well. Because again, within their busy lives, they now need to think about how do you make things easier, better, or have a support frame for those, a supportive container to hold space for other women leaders. So yeah, fantastic work. I have one more question for you. And this is, given everything that you do, all the people that you engage with, if someone had to ask you now for one tip or some wisdom that you could share with young people, young women, what would that be?
Well, I don't know if I can give one tip, but I think the big thing is
Perfect.
believe in yourself.
Yeah.
I find even women our age who are experienced, have a lot to offer and so on, are still questioning their own worth, whether they offer value and so on. They lack confidence and self-esteem. So I think, believe in yourself, because if you don't, no one else will. People, you in a sense teach people how to treat you. So that's the one big thing. And the second big thing I do want to share is focus on your well-being now as a young person. We now live with chronic health issues and all those kinds of things because all we did was think about work. So, take care of your health, try and eat well, sleep well, the basics, So even if we talk about self-care, think about it as the things that are crucial and fundamental to support you in this journey that you are taking. So those would be the two things that I would say.
Thank you so much. I want to say that knowing you and knowing the fact that you are all about partnerships, it would probably also be surround yourself with people
Yes.
that are positive and
Yes.
that can help build, because that's what I can see. So I'm saying something that I'm looking at, all of what
Yes. No,
um,
I was gonna say that because I think that the reason why I create community is because I think we need community, we need support, and we need each other. And so there are different ways to tap into, networks, building solidarity and so on. And linked to that, often, women think they need to go get more qualifications in order to move up in the ranks, but actually you need more networks, relationships to do that. So, instead of thinking of doing a second master's, for example, try and go and find women in the spaces where you want to grow in and go and find a mentor or go and join communities in those spaces so that you build networks and relationships, because that's how you will move up.
That's incredible, because I can hear you. I'm also constantly like, okay, what can I do next? What do I add? And you look at your CV and you exhaust yourself when you look at all of these things. And then again, how intentional have you been with what you've selected? So a fantastic tip, absolutely a gem. I need to also internalize some of that. So thank you so much, Shireen. It's been wonderful having you and to get to know you a little bit more, because I have been privileged to have you as a business coach and just in my space, and to have met you in person. So being able to showcase who you are as well to everyone else is such a privilege. I also just want to say, for someone who is as busy as you are, you've got such a calming nature. And so to anyone who's looking for that, for someone who's going to be able to bring you back into yourself and to reflect properly, I would definitely recommend that you tap into the space wherever Shireen is, whether it's the WhatsApp groups that she spoke about, or whether it's following all of these different activities that she's doing, because I know that you do have social media pages for the next chapter, for Tara Transform as well. Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with Shireen or with her team, then that's one way of doing that. So thank you so much, Shireen. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Rena. I really enjoyed it.